The company that once defined the future of technology is now fighting just to catch up. And what just happened at Apple with the sudden departure of their AI chief, John Giannandrea, after 7 years, exposes internal dysfunction so severe that it's threatening the company's ability to compete in the AI revolution that's reshaping the entire tech industry. But here's what makes this situation genuinely catastrophic.
Apple has lost 47 of its top 50 AI researchers in just 2 years, with 18 fleeing to OpenAI, 12 to Google, 9 to Meta, 5 to Anthropic, and 3 starting their own companies in what insiders describe as a complete brain drain that gutted the division. How Gianandrea, who was brought from Google in 2018 with the promise of reshaping Siri and building Apple's AI future, reportedly clashed with CEO Tim Cook in 2023 over budgets for AI chip development in a showdown between Google-style ambition and Apple-style caution. Why Apple was forced to strip Gianandrea of oversight over the robotics team in April 2025 as tensions escalated and the AI strategy kept wobbling, with every major update postponed and every big rollout still in progress. And the fact that Apple is now reportedly leaning on Google's Gemini to power the next version of Siri, which represents an almost humiliating admission that their own AI development has fallen so far behind they need their rivals' technology to compete. Once you understand why Gianandrea wanted vast compute resources and cloud-scale aggressive infrastructure, while Cook insisted on Apple's methodical privacy-first approach with on-device limits that preserved the brand but slowed the race, why insiders described the past year as AI turmoil, with not just missed deadlines but deep structural dysfunction that prevented the company from shipping competitive products, and what it means that Tim Cook is reportedly preparing to step down as CEO next year, right when Apple desperately needs stable leadership to navigate this crisis, you'll realize the company that revolutionized smartphones and created entire product categories is now at war with its own culture and might be watching rivals like Google and Microsoft rewrite the future that Apple once promised to lead. The tech giant that built empires on innovation is in turmoil, and the cracks are no longer possible to hide. Apple, the company that once defined what the future would look like, is now scrambling desperately just to catch up. They're losing top AI talent at an alarming rate, delaying key projects repeatedly, and watching helplessly as rivals race far ahead in the artificial intelligence revolution that's reshaping the entire technology landscape. The sudden exit of Apple's AI chief has exposed deep internal rifts, stalled innovation, and a company culture struggling to adapt to the new era of artificial intelligence. With CEO Tim Cook's rumored retirement approaching next year, and Apple scrambling to regain any semblance of control, the spotlight is now intensely focused on a company genuinely at war with its own future and its own limitations. Apple once believed it had found its AI savior. Back in 2018, John Giannandrea, the man who helped shape Google's most advanced AI systems during his time there, walked into Apple Park with what seemed like a promise of redemption, a new chapter, a new Siri, a completely new future for Apple's position in artificial intelligence. But 7 years later, that promise is collapsing catastrophically under its own weight, and the company is left scrambling to explain what went wrong. Apple confirmed on Monday that Gianandrea is stepping down as head of artificial intelligence. The official statement was characteristically diplomatic, thanking him for the role he played in building and advancing their AI work, helping Apple continue to innovate and enrich the lives of users. He will be replaced by Amar Subramanian, a veteran Google and Microsoft engineer of Indian origin who brings what Apple hopes will be fresh perspective and urgently needed expertise. Subramanian brings substantial experience to Apple, having most recently served as corporate vice president of AI at Microsoft and previously spending 16 years at Google, where he was head of engineering for Google's Gemini assistant prior to his departure. His deep expertise will supposedly be important to Apple's ongoing innovation and future Apple Intelligence features. But behind those carefully crafted soft words is a hard truth that's impossible to ignore. Apple's AI strategy is wobbling dangerously, and the entire world can see it happening in real time. Apple has fallen dramatically behind in generative AI, and nowhere is this more painfully obvious than with Siri. Once considered a pioneer when it launched, Siri has become something of a punchline in tech circles, a cautionary tale about resting on early advantages while competitors iterate and improve relentlessly. The company debuted its massive Apple Intelligence suite in 2024 with great fanfare. It sounded bold and ambitious. It looked polished and premium in typical Apple fashion. But competitors like Google and Microsoft kept racing ahead regardless, pushing faster updates, deeper models, and genuinely smarter assistants that left Apple looking increasingly out of touch. Apple, meanwhile, rolled out Safe, small steps that felt incremental rather than revolutionary. Most major updates were postponed repeatedly. Every big AI rollout remained perpetually in progress, stuck in development hell, while rivals shipped actual products to actual users. Apple CEO Tim Cook insisted progress was happening, but slowly, and Apple's executives kept repeating the same increasingly hollow line to investors and media. The work needs more time. The development requires patience. The features are coming soon. But time is exactly what Apple is running out of in this rapidly evolving AI landscape. Investors heard the hesitation in earnings calls, watched the delays pile up quarter after quarter, and began asking the one question Apple hates most. What exactly is going wrong inside Cupertino? What internal problems are preventing this massively resourced company from competing effectively? Now the clues are spilling out into public view, and they paint a troubling picture. Insiders with knowledge of the situation described the past year as nothing short of AI turmoil. This wasn't just about missed deadlines or delayed product launches. This was deep structural dysfunction at the organizational level, the kind of internal chaos that prevents even talented teams from executing effectively. In April 2025, Apple stripped Gianandrea of oversight over the robotics team, a significant demotion that signaled serious problems. But the tensions were actually far older than anyone publicly admitted. He reportedly clashed directly with Tim Cook back in 2023 over budgets for AI chip development, a fundamental disagreement about resource allocation and strategic direction. Reports suggest it was an intense showdown between Google-style ambition and Apple-style caution, two fundamentally different philosophies about how to compete in AI. Gianandrea wanted vast compute resources, cloud-scale infrastructure, aggressive investment in the kind of massive systems that power cutting-edge AI models. Cook insisted on Apple's methodical path instead, prioritizing privacy first, maintaining tightly controlled systems, focusing on on-device processing with limits that preserved the brand's privacy reputation but dramatically slowed their ability to compete in the AI race that rivals were winning through sheer computational scale. Then came the exodus that truly revealed the depth of Apple's problems. Apple has lost 47 of its top 50 AI researchers in just 2 years. This represents a catastrophic brain drain, the kind of talent hemorrhaging that fundamentally cripples an organization's ability to compete at the cutting edge. 18 researchers fled to OpenAI, 12 went to Google, 9 joined Meta, 5 went to Anthropic, and 3 were so disillusioned they started their own companies rather than continue working within Apple's constraints. When you lose that percentage of your top talent in that short a time frame, it's not just about compensation or normal industry movement. It's a massive vote of no confidence in the company's direction, culture, and ability to do meaningful work in the field. These researchers are voting with their feet, choosing to work literally anywhere else rather than continue fighting Apple's internal battles. And with so much chaos already happening, Apple is potentially bracing for another major storm that could destabilize things further. Reports suggest Tim Cook is preparing to step down as CEO next year, potentially remaining in some powerful advisory role, but stepping back from day-to-day leadership. Leadership uncertainty is literally the last thing Apple needs at this critical moment when the company desperately needs steady hands and clear strategic direction. The company is now scrambling frantically to recover lost ground. They're boosting AI spending to around $1 billion annually, a significant increase, but still dwarfed by what rivals are investing. They're relaxing their infamous publication rules that prevented researchers from sharing work publicly, rules that made Apple deeply unattractive to academic-minded researchers who wanted to contribute to the broader field. They're snapping up additional office space to accommodate hiring pushes. They're tightening retention programs, desperately trying to stop the bleeding of remaining talent. But perhaps most tellingly, Apple is reportedly now leaning heavily on Google's Gemini technology to power the next version of Siri. This represents an almost humiliating admission for a company of Apple's stature and resources. They're essentially admitting their own AI development has fallen so catastrophically far behind that they need their rivals' technology just to remain competitive in their own products. It's the kind of dependency Apple has historically avoided at all costs, preferring to control core technologies vertically, even when it meant slower development. When a company rewrites its culture this dramatically and this desperately, when they're making moves that contradict decades of established philosophy, some fundamental questions naturally linger. Has the old playbook that served Apple so well for decades actually failed them in this new era? What exactly is the next chapter going to look like if leadership is changing and strategy is being reconsidered? Or is there even a viable new chapter at all? Or has Apple simply missed the AI boat while maintaining their perfectionist culture that values polish over speed? Apple now stands at the edge of a transformation it absolutely cannot delay any longer, and a competitive race it can no longer afford to lose without suffering permanent damage to its market position. The company that revolutionized personal computing, that made smartphones ubiquitous, that created entire product categories from nothing, is now genuinely struggling to compete in what many consider the most important technological shift since the internet itself. The next moves Apple makes in the coming months will fundamentally decide whether the company regains the innovative magic that once defined it, or whether it's forced to watch helplessly as rivals like Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, and Meta rewrite the future that Apple once confidently promised to lead. The stakes couldn't possibly be higher. This isn't just about one product line or one executive departure. This is about whether Apple remains relevant in the AI powered future that's arriving faster than anyone anticipated. The irony is almost painful. Apple spent decades building a reputation for seeing the future before anyone else, for understanding what users wanted before they knew they wanted it, for executing with a level of polish and integration that competitors couldn't match. But in artificial intelligence, all those traditional Apple strengths, the obsessive secrecy, the vertical integration, the privacy first constraints, the perfectionistic culture that ships nothing until it's absolutely ready, all of these have become weaknesses rather than advantages. Google and Microsoft and OpenAI succeeded by being willing to ship imperfect products, iterate publicly, learn from users in real time, and invest compute resources at scales Apple's more conservative approach couldn't match. They built cloud-first AI systems with massive data advantages, while Apple insisted on on-device processing that protected privacy but limited capability. They published research and attracted top academic talent, while Apple's secrecy made researchers feel isolated from the broader AI community. The appointment of Amar Subramanian represents Apple's latest attempt to course correct, bringing in someone with deep experience at the companies that are currently winning the AI race. His background at both Google and Microsoft means he's seen firsthand how those companies approach AI development, what cultural and technical factors enable them to move faster and ship better products. Whether he can successfully transplant those lessons into Apple's very different culture remains the critical question that will determine the company's AI future. But Subramanian inherits a difficult situation. He's taking over a demoralized organization that's lost most of its top talent. He's working within resource constraints imposed by a CEO who may be on his way out. He's trying to compete against his former employers, who have massive head starts and momentum. And he's doing all of this while trying to maintain Apple's core values around privacy and user experience that, while admirable, have proven to be competitive disadvantages in the AI arms race.
The challenge isn't just technical, it's cultural. Apple needs to fundamentally rethink how it approaches AI, while somehow maintaining the brand identity and user trust that made it successful. That's an extraordinarily difficult balance to strike, and there's no guarantee it's even possible. Some company cultures simply aren't compatible with certain types of innovation, and Apple's perfectionist, secretive, privacy obsessed culture may be fundamentally incompatible with the kind of aggressive, iteration focused, data hungry approach that's winning in AI. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.